The chair recognizes Mr. Wally in opposition to the bill. Members, please take your conversations outside the rail. Mr. Wally.
Members, I stand today in strong opposition of this legislation. As the representative for the voters of House District 140, who elected me to be their voice in this chamber, I must speak out against this injustice being done on the House floor today, particularly for Congressional District 29. Since I was elected to office 16 years ago, every single one of my constituents has lived in Congressional District 29. Members, even before I was elected, I worked for Congressman Gene Green in Congressional District 29 for several years. I worked in areas from Baytown to Pasadena to South Houston to the East End, all the way up to Northside and Aldine. I know this area of Congressional District 29 very well. Make no mistake, members, and to the public, House Bill 4, this map being rammed through the process today, obliterates that district. It treats our voters as crash test dummies. The district has been dismantled. The biggest impact to my voters will be on splitting apart communities of color that have historically been together. Congressional District 29 is a long-standing Latino majority district in Harris County. This district was created after the 1990 census as mandated by the Voting Rights Act, Section 2. The two anchors of this district are the North Side in my area and the East End in East Harris County. Historic, members, historic Mexican-American and Hispanic neighborhoods in Houston, where many of our grandfathers, our abuelitos, abuelitas, our tíos and tías settled in the early parts of the 19th and 20th century. These areas are now being ripped apart. They're being ripped apart. Members, so communities like Melrose Park, Lindell Park, Northline, Jensen Drive on the north side, which have always been connected communities on the East End side, communities like Second Ward, Denver Harbor, Manchester, Magnolia Park, Pecan Park. Communities like Aldine, Green Ridge North, Imperial Valley, Green Forest, High Meadows, Little York on the north side also have historically been connected to areas like Galena Park, Jacinto City, Pasadena, and East Harris County along the channel. But look, members, what's comical about this, I doubt the author of the bill and the author of this map even know where these neighborhoods are. But they are clear communities of interest that have always voted together since the inception and the creation of this district, Congressional District 29. And you will hear from my colleagues, Representative Hernandez, Representative Marianne Perez. They know exactly the neighborhoods we're talking about. Currently, the Hispanic citizen voting age population of House District 29 is about 64%. Under this map, the facts are that the population in the current CD 29 drops down to 42%. It does this by sawing off the district down the middle with the hacksaw and splitting apart the entire east side of Harris County from District 29 and running that eastern part, inner city East End, and connecting it all the way out into Liberty County. I'm sure there's fine people in Liberty County. I'm sure the representative from Liberty County is proud to represent their community. But the facts are, East End, inner city Houston, I would suspect have not much in common with Liberty County. What's more, the map on the floor today has changed from the map proposed from the first special session. And it's gotten worse for the Harris County Latino voters. These changes happened without public testimony and without a public hearing. On behalf of my voters, members, I'm angry. It's easy. It's easy when staring at a map of Texas on your computer to look at spreadsheets with population data and voter turnout and use that to draw shapes that will help you win elections. But redistricting is about the people and communities and creating districts that comply with the principle of one person, one vote. We also have a legal obligation to carefully consider how those districts affect the ability of racial and ethnic groups of voters elect candidates of their choice. This is more complex than just checking your population percentages. You cannot split apart a bunch of brown and black Texans and pat yourself on the back because you left enough behind to try to avoid legal trouble. Texas voters deserve better than this. My constituents deserve better than this. This body, this institution deserve better than this. Please vote no on this sorry piece of legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, today, in this second call special session, the first order of business should have been House Bill 1. We should have been debating a bill to restore flood relief to many Texans who lost their lives in the Kerr County historic flooding. But instead, the first bill that we're taking up is a racial gerrymandered House Bill 4 from a mid-decade redistricting that is totally unnecessary. You know, I want to put this in context. Just less than 2 weeks ago, we commemorated and celebrated the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And everyone in this body should be extra proud of it because it was signed into law by then Lyndon Baines Johnson, President of the United States of America from Texas, our own Texans. This, in the history books, is one of the most transformational pieces of legislation in our nation's history. It changed literally the course of this country. It righted a historic wrong. And what do I mean by that? Prior to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, people who looked like me, they couldn't serve in public office. In fact, I'm the first African American elected in Fort Bend County as state representative since Reconstruction. And I know I stand on the shoulders of those who made good trouble. What do I mean by that? The people who came before me, whose shoulders I stand on today, they risked their lives to end Jim Crow laws that had literacy tests, that had poll taxes, where people had to recite the Constitution. People had to guess how many bubbles in a bar of soap. Not just people, but African Americans in this country. Because of them risking their lives on freedom rides, because they're risking their lives sitting at lunch counters, because they marched, they protested, knowing they may be beaten with billy clubs, knowing that they may have water hydrants pushed on them, knowing that law enforcement was not there to serve and protect them, but to push them back and enforce Jim Crow. They defied the odds. They pressed forward. Many of them didn't make it back home. Many of them lost their lives because lynching was a way of life. Lynching was common. Prior to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, there was an incident that was captured on national TV called Bloody Sunday. And if you don't know it, you should Google it. Bloody Sunday was when former Congressman John Lewis and other freedom fighters, they marched from Selma to Montgomery for ending Jim Crow so that people could vote of color. Many of them were beaten, including Congressman John Lewis. He was beaten nearly to death by law enforcement because they weren't there to serve and protect. He was beaten to a pulp. He nearly lost his life. He was knocked unconscious. It captured the American people to say, not on our watch do we want to continue to allow this country to treat African Americans this way. And people of good conscience said that they didn't want to be on the wrong side of history. So they came in solidarity with John Lewis and Martin Luther King and others to say, we want to change this. And so it wasn't just African Americans then walking and marching. It was people of good conscience that were Anglo, that were other ethnicities, to say in America, we believe that every human being should be treated with dignity and have the right to vote. Long story short, that was why they passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965, because of Bloody Sunday. And here we are in 2025, not 1965, with a racial gerrymandered map that takes us back to those dark days. And why do I say that? Because we have a map where we have the first African-American district that was created after the passage of the Voting Rights Act to elect our own Barbara Jordan, the first African-American to serve in Congress in the South since Reconstruction in the 18th congressional district. That was progress. But here we are with a map that eliminates the progress that was made, the marginal progress that was made in a state that has more African Americans than any other state in the country. You had Barbara Jordan. After her, you had the legendary Mickey Leland. After that, you had the legendary Craig Washington. After that, you had the legendary Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, followed by Congressman Sylvester Turner and his death. It's already a shame that they didn't call the special election after Congressman Turner died in January to put that ballot on May. But here we are today where this map, this racial gerrymander, would now pit the winner of the 18th congressional district with Congressman Al Green of the 9th congressional district, because he is now under this proposed map in the 18th. Congressman Al Green has been a freedom fighter speaking truth to power. And now you're taking away a historic district and 2 African Americans, and you're making Houston pit 2-1. And then you go to Dallas. It doesn't stop there. The historic 30th congressional district that was once held by Etta Bernice Johnson, who we memorialized, and her body lied in state. She was a transformational legislator from this body. She was preceded by Congressman Jabson Crockett, our own colleague, former colleague. Now that seat is Congresswoman Crockett was removed from her district into the 33rd to pit her against our former colleague, Congressman Mark Vesey. So we should be increasing African-American representation by 50%, but unfortunately, this racial gerrymandered map reduces it by 50%. And I don't know, I feel like Fannie Lou Hamer when she said she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of seeing more attacks on African Americans in this state that has more African Americans than any other state. I'm sick and tired of seeing more attacks on our Hispanic brothers and sisters, because this map doesn't just disenfranchise African Americans, but also our Latino brothers and sisters. I'm sick and tired of this attacks on black and brown with this anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm sick and tired of us not want to talk about it because we implemented critical race theory, so we don't even teach about it anymore. So I feel the pain of our ancestors who thought they had overcome many of the barriers of the past, that we shouldn't have to relitigate these issues in 2025. Thank God we have the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and this House Bill 4 violates that. It's unconstitutional, and it more than likely will be struck down. But in the meantime, many people, including my constituents that are currently in the 9th Congressional District, are going to be disenfranchised. And so I know, as a man of faith, I believe that in a higher power, and I believe that Barbara Jordan would be turning over in her grave to see what we're doing in this body. I believe that Sheila Jackson Lee and Mayor Congressman Sylvester Turner will be turning over in their grave to see what we're doing in this body. And I know many of you probably are like, well, this is just something we have to do. People elect us to be statesmen, to put people before politics. And this racial gerrymander is going to disenfranchise and impact people, specifically people of color, packing and cracking communities of interest to disenfranchise them so they don't have the ability to elect a candidate of their choice. And so I rise today in opposition of this racial gerrymander map and ask you to be on the right side of history and reject this notion, this Texas takeover, and do what's best for the citizens of this state. Not President Trump, not anybody else, but the citizens of this state. They are the ones that are watching. And you may not realize this today, but just like the people that were on the wrong side of history back in 1965, history will be looking at the decisions that is made in this body today. And I want to challenge you, when you look in the mirror, where were you? Were you on the right side of history in favor of voting rights for all? Or were you on the wrong side of history where you're upholding discrimination with this racial gerrymander map? So I strongly urge you to do the right thing and protect the rights of the vulnerable that's found in Proverbs 31:8-9. And I'll close with this. It says to speak out for the one who cannot speak, for the rights of those who are doomed. Speak out, judge fairly, and defend the rights of oppressed and needy people.
Ms. Garcia of Dallas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, under the current map, CD 32 is a coalition district. When white, Black, Hispanic, and Asian communities come together and make up nearly 68% of the population and nearly 64% of the voting age population. Black and Hispanic voters alone account for over 52% of the voting age population. Under the proposed map, our community will be torn apart. The Anglo share of the district rises from 36% to more than 52% of the voting age population. Meanwhile, Black, Hispanic voters together drop from 52% down to just 35% of the voting age population. This is not a minor adjustment. This is deliberate dismantling of minority voting strength in North Texas. In Dallas County, the effects are even more clear. Currently, Dallas makes up 85% of CD 32. Within what share the district reflects the true diversity of the Dallas County, 31.7% Anglo and 58.9% Black and Hispanic combined. But in the new map, Dallas County's shares of the district is reduced to 62%, adding many counties far from Dallas, Rockwell, Hunt, Upshur, Wood, Rains. As a result, Anglo voters jumped to nearly 38% in Dallas's portion, and the combined Black and Hispanic population falls to 48%. In other words, the very heart of Dallas's diverse communities is being diluted by drawing counties that do not reflect the same racial or cultural makeup. This is about more than numbers on a page. It is about whether families in Pleasant Grove, Garland, and Mesquite will still have a voice. It is about whether communities of color that built CD 32 into a district of opportunity will be silenced by map lines that crack Dallas County apart and pack it with neighboring counties. I want to be clear. This map doesn't just weaken minority representation, it severs the connection between communities and their elected officials. It makes it harder for parents, workers, and seniors in Dallas County to know that their voices matter as much as anyone else's. Congressional District 32 has been a district opportunity. This proposed map would erase the progress and turn CD 32 into an Anglo-majority district, dismantling the coalition of Black, Hispanic, and Asian voters who have fought for fair representation. Members, our democracy is the strongest when every community has a seat at the table. Weakening minority voices in Dallas is not just unfair, but unconstitutional. I urge you to reject this map and stand up for fair representation in Texas.
Chair recognizes Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise today in strong opposition to House Bill 4. This bill represents one of the most blatant assaults on fair representation that we have seen in Texas. Houston is one of the most diverse cities in the world, and Harris County was one of the most diverse counties in America. That diversity is our greatest strength. It is what makes our neighborhoods vibrant, our workforce dynamic, and our communities resilient. And yet, HB 4 silences that diversity instead of celebrating it. Under this map, Latino communities in Harris County have been split apart and scattered across multiple districts, silencing their voice and diluting their ability to elect their candidate of choice. Nowhere is this clearer than in Congressional District 29. For decades, CD 29 has stood as a performing Latino majority district, a community of interest where Hispanic voters could elect their candidate of choice. But this map dismantles that district. Latino neighborhoods like Denver Harbor, Magnolia Park, 2nd Ward, Manchester, and Northside, historic centers of Latino political strength, have been carved out. The Hispanic citizen voting age population has been reduced almost 20 points, from roughly 63% to just 43%. That kind of drastic change has nothing to do with population shifts or routine adjustments. It is a clear effort to weaken Latino influence in Harris County. Under this proposed map, my home and almost my entire legislative district, which is over 70% Hispanic, is taken out of CD 29 and placed in CD 9. HB redraws CD 9 in a way that claims to create a Latino majority district on paper, 50.15%, but in reality dilutes the voting power of communities of interest in inner city Houston. By stretching the district across unrelated suburban and even rural areas, this map undermines Latino representation. It makes little sense to connect inner city Houston all the way to Liberty County, 50 miles away. These areas do not share the same priorities, challenges, or way of life. Inner city Houston is one of the most diverse, dense urban centers in America. Demographically, the contrast is stark. Houston's East End is majority Latino, home to historic Hispanic neighborhoods with large immigrant communities and several Catholic churches over 100 years old that were established for the growing Mexican-American community. Combining Houston's historic Hispanic neighborhoods like Denver Harbor, 2nd Ward, Magnolia Park, and the cities of Galena Park and Jacinto City, which are less than a mile apart, with Liberty County, a white county 50 miles away, denies Latino voters a meaningful chance to elect their candidate of choice. This is not what a functioning democracy looks like. This is not what Texans expect of us. We should be expanding opportunities for representation, not dismantling them. Harris County's Latino population growth is so significant that the county should have gained a second Latino opportunity district. Instead, this map cracks Latino voters apart, dismantles CD 29, and distorts CD 9. all to weaken the communities of color that are the backbone of our economy and our democracy. Members, HB 4 is not about fair representation. It is about silencing voices, silencing the voices of Latino voters, my family, my friends, my neighbors. It is about stripping away opportunity districts that were hard-won and protected under the Voting Rights Act. This is not only wrong, it is unconstitutional. I urge you to reject HB 4. Protect the rights of every Texan to have their voice heard. Protect the communities who built Harris County and keep it strong. And protect the integrity of our democracy, which demands fair maps and equal representation for all. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have lived in CD 29 all the days of my life, and with the passage of this map, it will move me to CD 9. With these redistricted maps, voter disenfranchisement will undoubtedly be worse in many communities like mine. Based on data from the 2020 census, Latino voters make up about 43.4% of the people in Harris County, Texas. The Hispanic population has been the largest ethnic group in Harris County since 2010. In fact, in Houston, over 38% of Houstonians aged 5 years and older speak Spanish at home. This is the case for many of my constituents. My community deserves fair representation, representatives who share their values, understand their culture, and are able to communicate in their first language. Representatives who truly understand the struggles that Hispanic communities face. The Hispanic population is already underrepresented. These maps further affect our representation. Additionally, based on 2020 census data, Black or African American residents make up 18.7% of the total population of Harris County. Those two groups, when combined, make up the clear majority. Despite making up the clear majority in Houston, where I live, and in this state, our voters' voices are diluted. Our communities certainly deserve to have their voices heard. I urge you to join me in voting no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Ms. Gervin Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members and people in the gallery. Today represents something new and different as it relates to, as state representatives, how we must see ourselves moving forward. I would ask each member in this body to understand this. When I ran for election, I ran to be able to help improve Texas. And I know some people think this may be a game, and it's funny. But the reality is this. Texas needs brave men and women. Texas needs transparency, which means engaging the community. Texas needs its members to respect and show how honored they should be to be a part of this body. What was interesting to me as I had my dialogue with Chairman Hunter was he focused a lot on why Democrats left to not create a quorum. I want to be clear. I want each and every one of you to understand. We didn't run from anything. We ran to the public because what we felt has truly been an injustice and is being an injustice. And I'll tell you why it was an injustice. We didn't act as Texans to be able to change the dynamics of our community. There was a letter that came through. A letter. Mr. Speaker, I hope in the future that we're not moved by outside influence. That we indeed move in a way that makes sure that Texans sets the agenda and no one else. When I think about these maps, and I have asked on a number of occasions, who drew these maps? No one can tell, or at least they have not revealed who drew these maps. And I know that's a bald-faced lie. So when one comes from the outside to steal what's precious in Texas, that's hurtful. I asked again, where are our brave Texans? But I will caution each and every one of you, be careful. Be careful about the actions you're taking, because indeed it not only impacts us, but it impacts our children and our children's children, the things that we do today. If DC has asked for something, we must ask ourselves, what's next? What's next of interference? For me, this body has changed. It has created an atmosphere of division, an atmosphere of disgust, an atmosphere when I now look at my colleagues and say, wow, who are you really? You know, when I had my medical episode, I was so moved by the members who came to pray and gave me well wishes. And as you know, each and every day we come, we pray together. We pray together. We give honor to the U.S. flag and the Texas flag because we know the value of what we do here. But when that changes, not because we disagree, not because we have different positions, that changes when I see professionals that will support something that they know is wrong, but because they want to either hold on to a seat or they're fearful of the unknown. I would say to my colleagues, what's so hurtful is when my colleagues can look me in the face and look other members in the face and be willing to take away 2 African American seats. As you all know, the struggle, particularly for African Americans, have been long and hard. When we looked at a situation where the floods came, so many people died, some of which I even knew. And we put this as a priority before putting that first. That tells us all something about this body. Mr. Speaker, we need to change that. We need to be able to address those priorities first. It should have been number 1 on the agenda, but it wasn't, and that was disheartening. So I say to my colleagues today, get brave. Understand our real work here. It's not a game. It's not a plaything. We've been blessed to be one of 150, to be able to improve the quality of life for all Texans. And we have to come together and understand what that looks like so we create the win-win, not the winners and losers. That's the Texas I would love to be a part of. It was also hurtful with the social media. It was really childish more than anything. Lock them up, go get them, they running, all that kind of nonsense. And I think we're too important and we've got a job that's too big to go down that rabbit hole. So for today, I have mixed feelings about this body. And I hope that we can become a better body, not one that seeks to hurt others, to create cultural wars, to demean different positions, but indeed that we can work together to respect the positions that we hold. I call upon each and every one of you to really seek inside why you are really here and what your real role and goal should be as a legislator. Members of my Republican Party, we need you to be brave. We need you to be transparent. We need you as a working partner, not as an adversary. Members of the Democratic Party, let's continue. Even though we're in the minority, we're going to continue to fight the battle for the people. And finally, I would say this. Those of you who feel this is okay, let's get ready for the fight. Because the fight ain't over. It's going to continue. And it's going to be one where we have energized America to save democracy. And we will continue to do that as we move forward. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Busey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ms. Gervin-Hawkins, Chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, thank you for being brave. I apologize that so many of your colleagues chose to speak over your speech. Mr. Speaker and members, I rise today not just as a legislator, but as a Texan who still believes in the radical idea that voters should choose their leaders, not the other way around. This bill, House Bill 4, betrays that idea. House Bill 4 is not about representation. It is not about fairness. It is a desperate, mid-decade power grab engineered in Washington, executed in Austin, and paid for by the Texans we are supposed to represent. Let me be clear. This is Donald Trump's map. It is clearly and deliberately manufactures 5 more Republican seats in Congress because Trump himself knows the voters are rejecting his agenda. And instead of respecting that rejection, he's changing the rules. Instead of listening to the people, he's trying to silence them. And Texas Republicans have been more than willing to help. So let's talk about what House Bill 4 really does. It punishes my community of Austin, one of the most diverse, fastest growing, and engaged cities in America, by carving it up and pitting 2 progressive champions, Congressman Doggett and Kassar, into the same district. It dilutes the voting power of Black, Latino, and AAPI Texans, communities that have fueled our state's growth and are entitled to a voice in its future. And it draws neighborhoods like mine in North Austin into districts that stretch over 360 miles to Midland and Odessa in one direction, and over 170 miles to Freestone County in the other direction. Chairman Hunter, that's over 500 miles apart. That's not compact, that's corrupt. It is shameful, it is dangerous, and it sets a precedent that should terrify every single American. If you want to know the state of our democracy, look no further than this House floor. Representative Nicole Collier has been held here against her will for 2 full days, over 48 hours, because she refused to sign a permission slip from DPS, treating her like she's a child asking to use the restroom. Representative Collier is a 7-term legislator, an attorney, and an advocate for her community. She's being surveyed and detained in her own capital simply for dissenting. This is not democracy. This is authoritarianism in real time. Republicans are going to try and convince you that this is the will of the people. But if the people agreed with them, why do they need to cheat to win? Why did they try to ram this through without any public testimony on this map? Why did they hold a duly elected representative prisoner? Why did they use flood victims as a political bargaining chip? I'll tell you why. Because they're scared. They're not scared of me. They're not scared of our caucus, but they are scared of the people. They're scared because they know the people are tired of their lies. They're scared because they know the people are rejecting their policies. And they are desperate to pass these maps because it's their last chance to cling to power, and they know if they don't, they will lose in the 2026 midterms. So let me end where I began. I still believe in the Republic. I still believe in this House. I still believe that democracy is worth fighting for. That's why I broke quorum. That's why I stand here today. And that's why I will vote no on this racist bill. Because House Bill 4 is not just about where the lines are drawn, it's about whether the people still hold the pen. And I think they should. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Mr. Emanuel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I wanted to read a definition because I realize that some people have gotten a little lost with what we're doing here and what's happening. I want to explain what is an economic engine. It refers to key drivers of economic growth, profitability, and value creation for companies, regions, or nations. When we were in committee, I brought up the fact that we were taking economic engines from already poor minority districts or districts that had been underrepresented or poor and underrepresented for many years. The point of that being is that we are taking from districts, for instance, Congressional District 30, which is where Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Jackson was. She used to be in the House. Now let me explain to some of you who don't know anything about her. She was a woman who used to have to sometimes walk home from work because they would force her to be late so she would miss the bus. So she'd have to walk 5 miles, and then the next morning they would say, "Hey, Eddie, did you catch the bus?" And she would say, "Yes, I did." And they would laugh knowing that she had to walk 5 miles to get home in the afternoon. These economic engines give us the ability to call these companies and make sure that they're investing in their areas. It's not forcing them to, it's asking them to. But I want to give you an example that a lot of people in here don't have. I'm going to give you my congressional district, which a lot of times people want to say things like, oh, Democrat-run cities don't work well. Well, the reason that my Democratic city hasn't worked as efficiently as it should have for over 2 decades is because in 2003, when this body did a mid-decade redistricting, you cut off our economic engines. You gave us to a different part of a county, Brazoria County, that has nothing in common with Southeast Texas of Jefferson County. And it has diluted that power, and it broke us up. It put us with a group of people who had more retail when we are more blue collar and we're industry. So we are split between Orange County, we're split between Jasper County that is further away from us, but we're closer off when it looks to representation to Brazoria County, which is much richer and much wider. And our districts were actually very well minority. It was blacks, Hispanics, whites. It was a true coalition district of just people working together. And by the way, it was already considered a Republican district. But you cut off our economic engines. And so now we have 2 of my cities are considered 2 of the most poorest cities in the country out of 20. But it gives you all a reason to say that certain people are poor, certain people are damaged. We need to take over their school districts. But that was done in this body when you took away our representation, when you gave us to a congressional member who didn't have a real understanding of what we were dealing with. And when the vast majority of those counties, the other part of that county, they didn't have to come to us to ask for votes, whether they were a Democrat or Republican. What you're doing right now to poor and underrepresented counties and cities is harmful. And I get winning because we keep saying that this is about elections. But at what cost is winning everything? Is it more important for you to win and have seats knowing that you've already messed up and harmed other people in their districts? You have already helped increase crime rates in other people's districts. You've already had them underfunded when it comes to school programs. And I'm telling you this not because someone read this to me in a book. I'm telling you this because this is what you've done to my community. This gives you a reason to have people that will go out there and say racist things about Black and Latino and Hispanic people because you've created an environment that has festered with people who are living in poverty. I ask you to please vote no on this, not about politics, but about the fact that you are going to cause real harm to people, and you are going to cause harm to your own citizens by breaking up communities of interest. You are going to put people's lives at risk. And for all of you who live out in East Texas, I want you to remember this. If you live in Jasper and you're trying to get to the nearest hospital, or you live in Orange County, you're much more likely to die giving childbirth because a hospital is 40 or more miles away. And those are mainly a lot of the constituents that you all say you're creating districts for, but you've made their districts even poorer. This is what you're going to be doing to other people throughout this entire state. And it is devastating what you are doing to poor minority communities, but it's more devastating at the fact that sometimes you can hate someone so much that you will do irreparable damage to yourself. That is what you are opening yourselves up to, is that one day when the demographics shift, you will be in districts that you will not have any voting power, and it will hurt. And you will watch your children grow up and go to jail and lose educational value. And I know that because that's what you all did to my district. That's what I represent. That's who I am and where I am from. I hope you take that into accountability when you're taking your vote into play, because this has real life implications for people, and it does hurt.
Chair recognizes Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm concerned that when I speak to the members of this body, I notice that many of you are not listening, and I actually don't expect you to. And I don't expect my words to affect how you act in the next few minutes. That's why today I'd like to speak to the people of Texas and the people of this country. And I want to speak out against the process that has been used to ram this gerrymandered piece of work down the throats of the people of our state. So, I'm a process person. I'm an engineer for a living. I'm particularly keen on how we do what we do. So let me start out by pointing out that the whole process for this has been a sham from the beginning. Any member in here, any leader of this state that tries to tell you that there were public hearings on this map, that is simply a lie. That is not true. So first, what we have before us today is a committee substitute that was voted out in a formal hearing. What that means for a formal meeting is not a hearing to the public. And when the author of the bill gets up at this microphone and says, we're not required to hold hearings, they did not hold hearings on this bill. They did not hold hearings on this map. So first, I'm honored to be the vice chair of the Redistricting Committee. I've had a front row seat to all of this. That committee did not convene during the session. It wasn't important. There was nothing to consider. Now in the special session, suddenly it's become an urgent enough need that we have some hurried hearings around the state with no bill being presented to the public. So let me just tell you what a farce that is. We had a hearing here in Austin. We had a hearing in Arlington. We had a hearing in Houston. Those 3 hearings, only 5 hours each. No map had been presented. We asked the bill author and the committee chairman over and over again, do you have a map? Are you working with anybody on a map? Is there a map? And they told us, no. We haven't been talking to anybody. We don't know anything about no map. Still, the people of Texas overwhelmingly came out to complain about this process, this mid-decade redistricting process that they could only see as unfair because it's not based on new census data. It's only based on partisan performance. Between the 3 public hearings to solicit public input, we had over 3,000 people in this state weigh in. Let me be clear, 98.8%, almost 99% of the people that weighed in, whether there was a map in front of us or not, boldly decried this. The people of Texas spoke, and the leaders of Texas ignored them. 99% opposed, 3,000 comments. The worst part is that this map seeks to serve power bosses in Washington by dismantling communities of color. And when we put it that way, I know I have heard members in this body push back on that. What it does is it dilutes the voting power of communities of color by dismantling those districts. And just saying a recent court case allows us to doesn't make it fair. And just saying there's no law against redistricting in the middle of the decade doesn't make it right. Y'all, if you're losing a game so badly that you feel the need to change the referees and change the rules to help you win, maybe it's time to have a look in the mirror. Because this process has been a sham from beginning to end. The maps that we're voting on today were never reviewed by the people of Texas. It dismantles communities of color to serve power bosses in Washington, and that is that. So when it comes time to express your opinion at the ballot box, and I'm talking to you, the people of Texas, I hope you'll show up and show out and let these folks know that we deserve fairness, equity, and a voice in our process. The bottom line is the people should choose the representatives to be their voice, and we should not have power bosses in Washington deciding who gets to vote where so that they can install Congress members. Thanks for your attention.
Chair recognizes Mrs. Weiner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. Mr. Speaker, could we get some order? There's a lot of chatter.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
Members, I have never much liked the idea of legislators drawing politicians' districts. And that was a feeling that was affirmed by my first experience being in this body, helping draw districts. But one of the positives was being able to advocate for my constituents, and in particular, to be able to advocate for the I-35 corridor in Hays County to stay whole, to be connected in its state house districts, its state senate districts, and its congressional district. That's important because the I-35 corridor is a distinct community that is connected to itself. People in East Austin have family in Kyle and San Marcos, and those folks have family down in San Antonio. Now, I know there's been a lot of conversation about how wonderfully compact these new maps are. But the truth is, this new map is ripping apart a performing Hispanic opportunity district, Congressional District 35, that runs up and down the I-35 corridor. It's gonna take communities like Blanco Gardens and Victory Gardens, historic Hispanic communities in San Marcos, and fold them into a district that is over 60% white. It's going to take the voice of those constituents and effectively erase them, giving them no power in determining who represents them in Congress, and attaching them to counties that they have little relationship with, like Bandera, Gillespie, Kendall, Kerr. Rural counties that don't have much in common with the rapidly growing and urbanizing I-35 corridor. It's also going to take fast-growing communities like Buda and Kyle and attach them to communities on the Gulf Coast, to Matagorda County, Aransas County, Nueces. It's going to take bedroom communities of Austin like Buda and Kyle, communities where the industries are focused on tech, government, higher education, and connect them to more industrial communities that just don't share their interests. But most importantly, these maps are ripping apart Hispanic communities, and the lines don't even make sense. Travis Elementary School, part of San Marcos CISD, will be in Congressional District 27, just barely. But much of its attendance zone will be in Congressional District 21, and a little finger that stretches up between Post Road and the Blanco River. Why anyone thought that was a boundary that would make sense to the constituents of San Marcos, Texas is beyond me, but the line is confusing and arbitrary and divides up communities. It means that Blanco Gardens will be in a different congressional district than Blanco River Gardens. Neighborhoods that, again, share a community, share relationships, share a grocery store, will be in different congressional districts. And members, this is particularly important because Congressional District 35 has been a performing Hispanic opportunity district. We hear a lot of promises about this new map, but you don't know performance till the map is drawn on the ground, until elections actually happen. Congressional District 35 was court-ordered to be drawn as a Hispanic opportunity district based in the I-35 corridor. And this body is about to disregard that court order and rip communities I represent apart. Remember, these maps also harm the Black community along the I-35 corridor, not just the Hispanic community. Right now, Congressional District 35 is 13.9% Black in voting age population. Now, parts of that district are going to get absorbed into Congressional District 37, Congressional District 21, and some will stay in 35. The highest Black population in any of those districts is 10%. Congressional District 21 will be just 2.53%. That means our historic Black communities in San Marcos that live along Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard are going to have no ability to link their voices with those of other constituents who share their identity and their history in order to have an influence on the electoral outcome. This map is destroying a district that has consistently been able to elevate the voices of people of color in choosing who represents them. So members, I ask you to think about the harm that's happening. Think about the districts on the ground that are being ripped apart. Think about the constituents who are going to have members of Congress who have no reason to listen to them because these maps are drawn to marginalize their voices. Members, stand up for fair representation and vote no on this map.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Flores, for what purpose?
will the gentlelady yield for question?
Will the lady yield for questions?
I will.
The lady yields.
Thank you, Representative Sweaner. I understand your district, like mine, is within the current Congressional District 35. Is that correct?
Yes, about 70% of my district is in Congressional District 35.
And this is a strong Latino community and a strong Latino opportunity district, is it not?
Yeah, we have historic Hispanic communities all up and down the I-35 corridor, from Ulen to Kyle to San Marcos to East Austin, and of course down to San Antonio. And these are communities that, as I mentioned, share relationships. I was on the phone with my old chief of staff recently, whose Old Guard San Marcos, and he has cousins in East Austin and cousins in San Antonio.
Are you familiar with Del Valley in my District 51 in Southeast Travis County?
I'm familiar with the community, but I don't know it as well as you do.
Well, as you might be aware, I represent 2 school districts. Del Valley ISD is in the community of Del Valley, and that's just east of the airport. That I've been told by constituents, and our Senator Saffirini, is being called by constituents with concern that their school district is being split between 2 congressional districts. Their own school district is now going to be split between 2 different congressional districts. Are you aware of that?
I wasn't aware of the specifics of Del Valley, but we're seeing those same concerns. San Marcos CISD is going to be split between 2 different districts, and even the attendance zones for some elementary schools are going to be divided between 2 districts. It doesn't make a lick of sense.
And that community is a big Hispanic community, and those students in that school district are going to be torn apart. It's a community of interest, and they're going to be, no longer be able to share a congressional representative. Don't you find that really troubling?
I find it incredibly troubling. And I was looking over the map, using some of the tools we have to look at the population, the Hispanic population in particular in that area. And when you're east of 35, I-35 in either Travis County or Hays County, there is almost always, with a couple exceptions, a Hispanic plurality. And in most cases, a Hispanic majority. Those constituents should have the right to band together and elect the candidate of their choice, just like they can in the current Congressional District 35.
Well, thank you, Representative Sweener, for standing up for your constituents, for standing up for my constituents that are within that congressional district. And I also join you in urging everybody to vote no against this map. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Flores. Members, the facts are clear. This map is going to rip apart performing minority opportunity districts. And the harm in my community it's going to be immense. So I urge you to vote no and keep these connected communities of interest along I-35 together in Congressional District 35. Please vote no.
Chair recognizes Ms. Garcia Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise today in strong opposition to House Bill 4. This proposal disenfranchises millions of Texans, families, communities, and neighborhoods across our state, including those I represent in House District 115, and even myself. Under this plan, congressional districts 32 and 33 are radically redrawn to deprive Texans of fair representation. District 32, my own district, is an egregious example in North Texas. It forces together suburban communities like Farmers Branch, where I live, with rural communities as far as Pittsburgh and Gilmer in East Texas. These districts are neither compact nor true communities of interest. Instead, District 32 has been carved into a 175-mile fajita strip that dilutes and disenfranchises voters. District 33 is yet another case. Today, it connects Latino communities in Dallas and Fort Worth, ensuring their voices are heard. But under this new map, it is configured to Dallas County alone. That deliberate change strips representation not only from my constituents in House District 115, but also from the people of Tarrant County. The result? Over 1 million Latinos in North Texas are left without meaningful congressional representation. Their voices are silenced. This is targeted exclusion, plain and simple, driven not by the needs of Texans, but by out-of-state political interests. It is a sad day for this chamber and for Texas when we put the whims of DC bosses above the needs of Texans who are truly suffering right now, like our families in the Hill Country, still grieving their losses and struggling to rebuild their lives, and promised by our own leadership to be put first as HB1. I was so moved by history growing up, learning about the Underground Railroad, Nazi Germany, and so many other painfully immoral times our world has experienced. asking myself if I would have just stood by, too scared to say anything, or if I would have met the moment in recognizing that our lives, each and every one of us, 150 members, our lives, our impact can turn the tide, stop the hurt, and heal others as well as ourselves at the same time. Today, I traded my state pin for my grandmother's pin in a reminder of how I was raised. I'm sure how so many of you were as well, to recognize our obligation to speak and fight for those who are most vulnerable, to speak up against injustice, and to have courage whenever everyone around you seems to be too scared to do what is right. Members, I implore you, my colleagues, I implore you to have courage. What we are doing today is unjust, it is un-Texan, and it is un-American. All eyes are on Texas. All eyes are on our chamber. For all of these reasons, I urge you to vote nay on House Bill 4. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, choices are at the heart of what we do. We choose what bills that we file, choose how we vote on legislation, choose what committees we want to be on. Today is a choice. We do not have to be doing this. And this is a critical moment in our history, just like my colleague just said. Recently, I went to a classroom in my district, and as an educator, going to a classroom is one of the most joyful experiences that I do as a legislator. And while I was having uplifting conversations, a part of my heart broke, because through the dialogue, I realized just how many young people are disenchanted with politics and elected officials, have very real concerns about the future of democracy, our state, and our country, are worried about the needs of their families and friends. This is what we should be focused on: their needs, their future, the leadership that they are pleading for. What they need to see is leadership that, like Representative Barbara Gervin-Hawkins said, was brave and demonstrated the utmost political courage, or leadership that has intentional and reflective choices. Leadership that is based in love, that creates policies, that is compassionate and caring so that people can thrive. Leadership that is future building. Today, we are seeing none of that. Let me be very clear. We could be the leaders the next generation needs, but instead we are doing harmful legislation that is completely opposite of the needs of the next generation. We could be a body that comes together and demonstrates political courage, intentional choices, love, future building, by saying that we will not let our maps be rigged, by saying that the maps are the blueprint for democratic engagement and they should not be corrupted. We could be that body. There are choices being made that are not leading towards that energy. Members, I know that it's been a long day, but this is for our future, for our children. I urge you to vote no.
Chair recognizes Dr. Lalani.
Mr. Speaker, members, I stand here today not just as a legislator, but as a physician and as an immigrant who came to this country more than 30 years ago. Believing in the American dream, I built life in Sugar Land, caring for seniors and families. I ran for the office for the same reason I practice medicine, to diagnose what is wrong and act so the people can heal and thrive. I will not make this about the parties and personalities. I will talk about people. In this country, the people should choose their leaders, not the leaders should choose the people. I represent House District 76, one of the most diverse, vibrant, fast-growing areas in Texas, a living snapshot of America's future. Colleagues, the map before us, its consequences will far most upon the communities of color whose growth has powered the state, yet who often see their collective voices diluted by the lines drawn far from their block. Those choices are not accidental. Members, if the authors believe these maps improve representation for the communities of color, say so plainly. Put the racial impact on record. Tell the Texans the neighborhood splits and why. If you are proud of this impact, defend it here on the floor. Our constituents deserve no less. As a doctor, I would never ignore patients' warning signs. The warning signs are all over this map. It will determine who gets the clinic, who gets the flood control, the school investment, safe streets, and who will be told again to wait in the line. Briefly to the moment where we are in. The families across Texas are still rebuilding from disaster. They are asking why this is the first priority, why these maps are being fast-tracked, while their recovery and safety are pushed to the back. You know this is not right. The people you serve also know that. On the process, the map shaped behind closed doors, influenced by interest far from the communities on those pages, will not earn public trust. Trust is built upon open, with facts, and with the willingness to hear those who are affected the most, especially the community of color, who have carried so much of Texas growth and deserve a seat on the table, not the line through their neighborhood. Members, this vote will not close the book. The story of Texas is bigger than this map. In this story that brought me here, the American dream, and that every child, every senior, and every working family has a voice and have the choice who would represent them. We honor that promise when our district reflects the communities as they actually live, pray, learn, and work together. I ask you all to vote no on HB 4 to keep the faith with the people who have sent us here. Remember, Texans of every color and creed deserve a fair representation. I respectfully ask to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Vote no!
Chair recognizes Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cracking and packing. Cracking and packing. It's the classic Texas Republican two-step when it comes to discriminating against Black, Hispanic, and other minority Texans. You crack and pack minority neighborhoods to dilute their voices and give outsized influence to Anglo communities, even though you know full well that Texans of color accounted for 95% of our state's population growth in the last decade. Your cracking and packing two-step is evident in many parts of the state in this map. I'm going to focus now just on my home county of Tarrant County. Tarrant County is a majority minority county of more than 2 million people. Tarrant County saw extensive growth in the last decade. All, I repeat, all because of people of color. In fact, Tarrant County's white population decreased in the last decade. But you wouldn't know that in looking at this discriminatory map. As you've already heard, this map fails to create a new Latino opportunity district in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, which is a tremendous failure because there should be one. But not only do we have that failure, this map cracks heavily Black and Hispanic neighborhoods in Fort Worth out of Congressional District 33, the district they have been united in since 2012. So let me talk about how you've accomplished the cracking. Some of those neighborhoods are submerged into CD25, which sprawls out more than 100 miles nearly to Abilene. Rural Anglo voters will now control the outcome of their congressional election, canceling their voices. The rest of those CD33 precincts are splintered and used for parts in CD12, once again controlled by Anglo voters in West Fort Worth and Parker counties. By the way, let me remind the House, if you've forgotten, how CD33 came to be. In 2011, the legislature, in passing its congressional map that year, did the exact same thing that this map does. They took heavily minority neighborhoods in Tarrant County and submerged them into white-controlled districts, suburban and rural districts, until a federal court stepped in and called it what it was: intentional racial discrimination that is against the law. Now, if you've heard this before, and if you're on the House Redistricting Committee like I am, it's because Congressman Vesey explained this to you a couple of weeks ago in our hearing, but you ignored it. Now, this legislature is poised to defy that court ruling from 2011 and repeat the same discriminatory sin. So that's the cracking, or an example of it. Let's talk about the packing. So most of my majority-minority House District 101 will be packed into CD 30, a historic Dallas-based district where black voters have elected the candidate of their choice since that district's creation in 1991. In other words, you don't need to pack more minority voters into that district unless, of course, your goal is to cynically dilute their collective voting strength. But the intentional discrimination doesn't even stop there. As Congresswoman Crockett testified in the House committee hearing a few weeks ago, you've removed key economic engines from CD 30, like Love Field in downtown Dallas. Hell, you even took her home out of her district. She told you that, but you ignored her on that too. Just like you ignored the thousands of Texans who voiced their strong opposition to this corrupt process. But you say, and I heard this in the committee, surely Congressional District 30 is going to have new economic engines with all that new territory in Tarrant County. Wrong. CD 30 in Tarrant County goes right up to the campus of UT Arlington, but the university goes into CD 6. CD 30 goes right up to the General Motors plant, but not quite. It also goes into CD 6. And the Arlington Entertainment District in CD 25. You know that's not a coincidence. You know what it is. It's straight up intentional discrimination. You can falsely claim it's about partisanship, but you know that's just a smokescreen for racial discrimination. We all see it. The people of Texas see it. And now the American people see it. Texas redistricting maps have been found to violate the Voting Rights Act every decade since the 1970s. I don't know why this legislature is so hell-bent on keeping that shameful streak going. But know this, we will see you back in court very soon.
Chair recognizes Mr. Bernal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is my 6th term, and when you've been here long enough, you get to know people. We often get to talk more personally, sometimes behind committee rooms or when it's late night during budget night, and those conversations are usually a little bit more personal. We talk in ways to each other that we don't talk here, and so I thought that the approach I would take, with so much has already been said that I agree with, that I would talk to you now the way I would talk to you then, with maybe a few fewer cuss words, of course. But I have to tell you, as your colleague, as your peer, it's frustrating when it seems like no matter what we say or what I say, you always seem to know better. That is frustrating. It is demeaning. And I'll give you an example of how often that's happened since I've been here. Some of you who have been here as long as I have may remember SB 4, which was the Show Me Your Papers bill, which allowed law enforcement to essentially racially profile people and say, you look like you don't belong, show me your papers, show me that you belong here. And we tried to tell you that that singled us out. We tried to tell you what that would look like on the ground, but you knew better. And then you've got the DEI bans that focus on clubs and departments that are designed to help and guarantee the success of students of color in particular. And we tried to tell you how that felt, what it meant, what you were doing, and even then, you seemed to know better. And then we go to the library book bans, when so many of those books were written by authors of color. And we tried to tell you, look at who the authors are. Look what they're writing about. This is how it makes us feel. This is what you're doing. This is the effect. And even then, you seem to know better. Then we've got the 287G agreements, which turn local law enforcement into ICE agents. And look what's happening now. Our neighbors, our friends, our family are getting scooped off the street by masked, unidentified agents. And we tried to